What's up, Big 12 Nation? It is Tuesday night in America. That can mean only one thing. It's time for another edition of your favorite Big 12 football-centric YouTube show. Yeah, the brain had to catch up with what the mouth was doing. That's right. It's the one, it's the only, it's the biggest 12 with me, your host, Clint Foster, wherever you are. Thanks so much for making us a part of your Tuesday night, man. Love you. Love to see you. How are we doing out there in Radio Land? So we got a great show lined up. It is Cincinnati night on the biggest 12. We're talking all things Bearcats and God's side of the Ohio River. You know what I'm talking about, okay? We're not mentioning Cincinnati Airport, okay? Just everything north of the Ohio River. But before we get into any of that, I'm a fantastic guest. I need a couple of things from you. First of all, I need you to subscribe to the show, okay? We're trying to make this a movement. We're trying to make this a thing, okay? So I need you to help me. So at Big 12 DOCFB, if you're listening on Twitter, hey, that's fantastic. Good to see you. Scurry yourself on over to YouTube and give us a subscribe, because that'd be really great. Every subscribe helps. We're trying to get to 1,000, okay? And I can't do it without you, so I need you to do it. And while you're following and subscribing and doing all the things, follow me on Twitter at Clint_Foster55, and my YouTube channel, which I've actually changed the name of. I need to update this, at Clint Foster Creations. I'm trying to get you all ready for that feature documentary that I have coming out so very soon. It's just about finished. I'm putting some finishing touches on it right now, and I'm trying to coordinate a premiere event. So when it comes out on YouTube for all of you to see is going to depend on when that premiere event happens, but definitely this fall. So be on the lookout for that. Also, make sure you're connecting with the Voice of College Football on Twitter and Instagram at VOCFB. This is your place, your HQ for all of your off-season and in-season topics, okay? Connect with the Voice of College Football on Twitter and Instagram. Check out our latest takes, ratings, and rankings. I can tell you the Instagram account in particular has been doing some fun little, rankings and off-season conversations that you should want to be a part of. And check us out wherever you get your audio podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on Amazon. We're on Apple. You name it, we're there. I think it's a part of your commute, It's not just me. Okay, there's a lot of other great stuff happening on this channel. So, go out there and become a part of it. And until we start talking about more podcast business, let's go ahead and get this show started. Yes, Dishfish, we're talking about the Queen City. And, I need one person in here to talk about the Queen City. That is our guest for the day. You know him from Viva La Cats. It is the incomparable Justin Hiles, ladies and gentlemen. Justin, how you doing tonight?
Gosh, so good with your intros all the time. Never match that. Just the energy is unmatched.
You got to bring
very important,
man. You got to bring the energy. How we doing, Justin?
Doing all right. Been busy, but we're keeping up. It's fun times in the Bearcats land. Baseball's in full swing, and the Crown is in full session. So
yeah, there it is. Bearcat baseball. But we're talking football today. It's all football here on the Biggest 12. That's this is the sport that we're most concerned with, even though women's basketball does exciting things. So Justin, before we get to talking about the Bearcats and the outlook for 2025, let's play a little trivia, okay? Let's get ourselves in an Ohio frame of mind and do a little Cincinnati trivia. Are you down?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I've got 10 questions for you here. This is a mix of University of Cincinnati trivia as well as just trivia about the Queen City, as Dishfish reminded us it is called. So we're going to see how good you can do. This is kind of the new. Last year it was tier lists. This year I'm doing a lot of trivias. Okay, so question number 1. This is Cincinnati, just city trivia. What famous chip brand randomly picked its name out of a Cincinnati phone book?
It's got to be Grippos.
It's actually not Grippos. It is Pringles.
Pringles. Okay.
Randomly out of the Cincinnati phone book. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so you're 0 for 1 so far. We'll see if we can nowhere to go but up. Okay. Here's another this is another company question. What alliterative adhesive has its headquarters in Cincinnati?
Alliterative adhesive. Huh. That's very specific. Adhesive? Are we talking like tape?
It's an alliterative adhesive. Its name is alliterative.
Oh, God, I'm
Thing that's gonna stick things to other things.
this is so out of the blue. I don't even know. I'm gonna have to I don't know, I'm gonna have to pass. I can't even think of anything right now.
Not gonna even throw out a guess. Okay, the answer is Gorilla Glue.
Oh my
Gorilla
God.
Glue, the illiterate adhesive, has its headquarters in Cincinnati.
That sounds
Um,
specific.
we're gonna get you on the board here, Justin. We're gonna get you. Okay. Here's a Bearcats question.
Okay.
There is one team in the Big 12 that Cincinnati is undefeated against all time. Who is that team?
One team in the Big 12 in football.
In football, yes.
In the Big 12. Ooh, let's run down the list.
Y'all haven't played everybody, by the way. You've played
That's true.
13 teams out of the Big 12.
I would say Arizona State.
It is Arizona
All
State.
right, all
It's on
right.
the board, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the Bearcats are 3-0 against the Sun Devils, so that's very exciting times. Okay, Nippert Stadium is the 5th oldest stadium in college football.
Mhm.
When was it built?
19.
We're talking 1915. Yes, okay.
All right.
Because I was going to clarify, we're talking like a concrete structure, not just we've
Mhm.
been playing on the field. But yes, 1915, and I need to get out to Nippert for a game.
That's great.
Absolutely. Okay, so there you got 2 points. Look at you.
Yeah.
We're doing better. All right. What famous TV show host served 1 year as the mayor of Cincinnati in 1977?
Jerry Springer.
Yes, Jerry Springer is correct. How did you know that one?
I mean, Jerry Springer's a icon.
Yes.
You can't not know that in
That's
Cincy.
fair.
You
That's
grow
fair.
up knowing that.
Okay, so we got 3 points. On to question 6. What is Cincinnati named after? What or who?
Cincinnatus.
Cincinnatus. Yes. Can you tell us anything about Cincinnatus?
Beyond the fact of Cincinnati, you're reaching real deep in my brain. You're tickling the back ends of my brain right now. No. I want to say it's like has something to do with like the god of like crops or something, but that's probably wrong.
Well, okay. So Cincinnatus was an actual guy in ancient Rome. You're not far off with crops because he's often considered a model of civic virtue because this guy was a consul. He was the head consul of Rome. He retired to go and tend to his crops, and then Rome had a crisis. The Aequi had invaded, and so they said, Cincinnatus, we need you to come help. He leaves retirement, comes to be the dictator, beats the Aequi in 16 days, and then retires again. He doesn't try to cling to power. So there you go. That's the most famous story of Cincinnatus. But you did know it was Cincinnatus, so
that's
4 points.
That's good to know too, because I mean, just coming right out of retirement, just we'll take one more victory lap. Why don't we do it?
Yeah, and then he didn't seek to cling to power once he had it again. He was like, "Yep, I do my job, and I'm gonna go home again."
Very virtuous.
Very virtuous. Yes. Okay, back to football questions. So Cincinnati's been in several conferences. The Frogs too have been wayward conference travelers in the past. In which two conferences did Cincinnati win the most championships?
Oh,
Conference championships.
Knowing how things went, I'd say the Big East has to be one of them.
The Big East is one, yes.
And I want to say the American, but Midwest or Conference USA.
So I need a
just
final
doing them all
answer.
out right now.
Yeah, you're just saying all the conferences. So Big East and what?
I don't know. We didn't really have a ton of success except for the 80s back then. So the American?
So it's not the American.
Okay.
It's the Big East and the MAC, actually.
MAC. Oh, my God.
The MAC was the other one. 4 conference titles in each. So we'll give you a half a point for that. When you get 4, you're sitting at 4.5.
Fair enough.
Okay, so we got 3 questions left. Let's see if you can. I feel like the average is like usually 6 points that I've been getting out of these trivia games. So we'll see if you can beat that. Okay, so this was kind of surprising to me as I was researching. Cincinnati has played Virginia Tech in 4 bowl games. um,
Mm.
including Cincinnati's first ever bowl game, which was the Sun Bowl. So, in those 4 bowl games against Virginia Tech, what is Cincinnati's record?
Oh, it's either 2-2 or 3-1. Let's say 3-1.
It is 2-2. You should have stuck with your gut. Yes, 2-2. Okay.
I should have known that because I know we lost another one in my lifetime, so that's tough. I should.
Yeah. Okay, number 9. Now I know you know this one. You
Okay.
got to know that. Steve definitely knows this one, but I feel like you probably know this one too. Who was Cincinnati playing when it adopted the Bearcat nickname?
Kentucky.
Kentucky is correct. Yeah. Yes. There's 5.5 points for you. Very nice. Okay, last question. Let's see if you can get to 6.5. Who are Cincinnati's 4 consensus All-Americans? The Bearcats have 4 consensus All-Americans all time. Who are they?
Oh God.
They're
Okay.
all this century, all since 2000.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Let's list them off.
2 of them are quite recent.
Yeah. Sauce
Gardner, yes.
Kobe.
Kobe is actually not.
No. Okay.
But we'll let you have one pass.
Yeah.
Because that's a tough one. You would assume that Kobe is.
Oh. Okay. So we got Sauce. We got. I know we got a kicker. The name is slipping me right now. It's early 2000s. I should know this. It's killing me. I can place it. I can see the name, but I can't say it. Pike.
You say Pike?
Mm-hmm.
No, nobody named Pike. No.
Man, you're killing me.
So I'll give you the kicker because, you said 2000s kicker. The kicker is Jonathan Ruffin.
Ruffin. Okay? Man.
So we got Jonathan Ruffin and Sauce Gardner. All right. And then you want clues for the other 2? I'll give you clues.
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm dying over here.
So, you had a punter who got consensus All-American twice.
Oh, my God.
And then you had a linebacker more recently.
Hubert.
Yeah, Kevin Huber. Kevin Huber is the punter. And who's that linebacker?
Derek Wolf. No, sorry, not linebacker. D-line. That's deep edge. Global.
Ivan Pace Jr.
Oh my God, Pace, dude, this is this is embarrassing.
We'll give you half a point. We're in
the off season, man. Yeah. You're just drilling me right now. My brain's been off of Bearcats.
How could you not think about the Bearcats all the time? And yes, the Kelsey brothers did go to Cincinnati, Caden, but never any All-American honors. Yeah,
no, unfortunately not.
Yeah, only pop stars and Super Bowls. That's it. Okay, well, not bad. Like I said, that's 6 points is about average, Justin. So you're right there where a lot of the other guests have been, so you shouldn't feel too bad about that.
Steve would have bolstered our score for sure. He would be.
So.
I know he would be listening and be absolutely ashamed of me, and it's okay.
Well, we'll make sure that Steve sees it so he can give you a hard time about it. So from one disappointment to another, Cincinnati last year.
Wow, what a transition!
Yeah,
my goodness.
So yeah, I mean, the Bearcats missed a bowl game. But what's your sense of the state of the program right now? Are you optimistic here in the Satterfield era? Are you fed up? Where are you at, Justin?
I feel like it's always easy to say cautious optimism, but somewhere between cautious optimism and neutral. Not even like where there's just almost like not like a feeling. There's not like I'm not really like excited, but I'm also not like terrified, if that makes sense. There's somewhere in the middle there where I think, there's a lot that they could have going for them, but it's also how much do you believe in Satterfield's mantra and system, and can that transition to wins, and then can all of the pieces with the portal plug in to make things go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, realistically, Cincinnati was extremely close to playing in a bowl game last year. I mean, that they should have won at Tech.
Yep.
I'm just come out and say it. That was a win that absolutely slipped through y'all's fingers.
Yep.
Just really poor clock management, to be quite frank. But what if you could point to a thing or a couple things that went wrong last year? What would you really say was the biggest issue?
I think the biggest issue that faces them, which seems to plague all Bearcats and Cincinnati teams too, is it seems like they kind of just meddle around for a lot of the game, and then everything's like, "Whoa, we're down 10. Let's go. Like, let's play the best we have played all day long in the final quarter." So if it's football, it's literally the final quarter or the final 5-10 minutes. If it's basketball, it's the last 10 minutes of the game. It's all sports, I think, that kind of plagues this city in general, but specifically for football, they just kind of forget who they are, I think, for a section of the game. And then finally, once push comes to shove and they got to start going, I think they're pretty effective, but a lot of times it's too little too late. And we saw that multiple times this season. We saw, like, just again, what we saw the season before, they made some improvements on, but a lot of times it was one little issue. It's like, what's the one thing in this game where you're going to have some kind of inconsistency? So maybe your offense is popping off, doing really, really well. Your defense is doing really well, but maybe your special teams cost you. And then the next week, it's the offense that costs you, and your defense and special teams are locked in. So I think there's just a lack of consistency where you're not really finding an identity, which to some degree I think is also part of the Scott Satterfield experience. He has a very balanced approach for everything. So everything gets a little love, but I think everything also kind of misses some emphasis. And I think that those things start to compound, and you see it once the ball starts rolling. Sometimes it works out for you. Sometimes it bites you in the butt.
Yeah. Well, looking forward to next season. I mean, of course, Brendan Sorsby's back, so you got to feel good about that. Well, before I get into the rest of the offense, I am curious your thoughts. The Big 12, I've been asking this of pretty much everybody because the Big 12 has an outstanding quarterback class going into this season.
Yep.
A lot of really, really good quarterbacks. Where do you feel like Brendan Sorsby ranks among the rest of the Big 12 signal callers? Because I feel like he's one that gets slept on a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's very true too. I mean, it's obviously he's still pretty young. There are some seniors in there. There's some good transfers as well. Things are always moving, I think, in this era now. It's just going to continue to happen. But for Brennan, I honestly would place him. I think his floor is the top half, somewhere between 1 and 8. I think he fits very nicely into that. Where he shakes out for the rest, I think it's just going to come down to how the season plays out. He started off really, really well last year. But then, as you started to see, there was a few games where some issues started to compound, some things started to get out of hand. An interception here or there turned into another interception. And some games he was really on it and some just got away. I think his better performance was in the front half. And so I'd like to see how he can rebound from last year and a lot of the stuff that he learned. I think a lot of it is, he did have the year at Indiana, but I think a lot of that experience that he has now will help eliminate some of those smaller errors, some of those poorer choices that he made. And that front half of his season where everything was, as pristine as you could ask for, I think you'll start to see a lot of that shape up and he's going to be the reason that we win games for sure. So I would put him probably somewhere between 5 and 6 in the conference.
Okay. Yeah. Now it's so hard now with like COVID years and all this other stuff, but Corey Kiner and Xavier Henderson, they are both gone, correct? Or are they going into their senior year?
Kiner's done.
Kiner's done.
Henderson should be done too.
Okay. So then the big question is, who else fills out this offense with Sorsby? Who's he got to throw to? Who's running the ball? That's my big question going into fall camp. What can we look forward to?
Yeah. The biggest thing I think is just going to be, honestly, if you want one big name to point to, it's going to be our tight end.
Yeah.
That's where I think you're going to see a lot of improvement, especially based off of last year. It's tough to say with again so many pieces that move in and out. I think our wide receivers have just whereas you saw a lot of stability in the American, you're not really necessarily getting that now. I think that's where it's kind of tough. You had like some 4 year guys who are really starting to make the roster come together, and you're getting some of that experience as like a veteran leader. And now it's just again, I think it's tough because people move in and out so often. It's just really hard to gauge what you're going to have out of your team every single year.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, what about defensively? Because Don Corleone is gone now as well. Yes.
Corleone's coming back.
Oh, he is
So
back.
we still
Okay.
managed to keep him. That's sort of part of our big three that we get to have. I'm excited for it. I think a lot of us were kind of expecting that he'd move on, but I don't think that his year this year was quite as grandiose as his sophomore season. And he's a Cincinnati kid through and through. And quite honestly, I think if you look at a lot of guys that are seeing the NFL um, opportunities now where they can get drafted, you stay an extra year, you might get yourself a little bit higher on that board. And with NIL in the mix, I mean, why go early?
Yeah.
Why go early if you're going to get stuck in the fifth or sixth round or
Mhm.
beyond when you could move up into the second or third and make money and you're still making top dollar as a junior or senior player, whether that be as a transfer or somebody who's stuck around the program. So um, yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be definitely a important part of our team and our core moving forward.
Yeah, he's certainly the linchpin.
Yeah.
And what's the defense look like around him, though? Are there any weaknesses that you're concerned about?
Um, I think last year, everything kind of, I, I don't know. I think if you're talking about specifically our linebackers, our corners, I think our linebacker room is, um, it's up to par with everything. I think our corners last year were some of the areas where we kind of got exposed. And so those are some additions that really need to be highlighted and make some improvements upon, just to get everything up to speed. It's one of those things that's tough as a Cincy fan because you look at years past and not so distant past, where you have just some elite pairings at the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball,
Mhm.
and now you're kind of looking for those stars to emerge. You're looking for those guys that are going to control the pace of the game, and so I think that's where a lot of our emphasis is now is just trying to shape up some of those loose ends and figure out where we can go from there.
Yeah. Well, before we move on, I do want to pause a moment to remind y'all that you can have your company, yourself, sponsored by the Voice of College Football, and you should definitely look into doing that. Okay, partner with the Voice of College Football. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the Voice of College Football. See what our partner Win Agency here on the screen has to say about its sponsorship experience with us. Let's discuss how you can reach your target market. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. Get yourself a spot on the biggest 12, people. Let's make it happen. Let me help you get the word out there. All right? I'd love to do that. Okay. So, let's start thinking about this schedule. Okay, I'm gonna put it up on the screen here because we're gonna try and get you in a bowl game. Yeah, I feel like that's the goal. Is that a fair goal?
That is the goal.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we've come to the point that the bowl game is the goal, and nothing beyond that is the goal.
I mean, sometimes you got to rebuild, okay?
Yeah,
And when
that's
Scott
fair.
Satterfield's the coach, you got to that's what you got to
Yeah.
do. But okay, if we're going based on last year, you got a nice little mix in here of really challenging games and more manageable games. I mean, who the hell knows what Arizona and Utah are going to be next year? If UCF is going to be a team to contend with next year, certainly on the road. Um, But I don't know. Do you see 6 wins here? What are your thoughts as you just look at this schedule, Justin?
All right. Well, this is the first time I get to complain on somebody else's show about the Nebraska game. So I'm going to complain about the Nebraska game since I
Let's
have
do
the
it.
opportunity. We sold our soul to move a home game for the Bearcats. Not only it's not in Nebraska, but specifically to Kansas City, which then to specifically play in Arrowhead, which every Cincinnati fan who is true and true Cincinnati as a Bengals fan hates.
Sure. Yeah.
Hates the Chiefs. So now we have to play in our rivals' stadium after we sold away our rights to that game. Sure, make more money, but you had a home game on the schedule against what is going to be a very competitive team,
Yeah.
a tough team, and I mean we're just hoping that one we can figure out a way to win. I think they should be a fairly even matchup for us. However, I think that Nebraska game is going to be tough. And again, like some seasons past, unfortunate as it is, some of those first games are a litmus test for your season. It's like, okay, did we come out from our points last season and find a way to improve upon some of our errors? And can we do that in an away environment? Of course, again, it's technically, if you look on the screen right in front of you, it says versus Nebraska, not at Nebraska, but it's in Arrowhead. It is not a home game as much as it seemed to be. That is a much closer drive for Nebraska fans than it is for Cincinnati fans. So that will realistically be an away game. And that's the part that sucks because while it's a neutral site, it really is not. And I'm very interested to see how that's measured towards the end of the season. But I don't think we're looking at anything where we're measuring the quality of wins. I think we're looking at how do we get to 6. So that one is a 50-50, but we'll go ahead and give it to the Bearcats to start. Bowling Green, sneaky good team.
Yep.
It's one of those ones that now we don't have Miami on the roster or on the lineup anymore for our schedule. So I think having another regional team that's going to be looking to get one over on you is going to be important to watch. But realistically, Bowling Green should be a win, no questions asked. If we can't win Bowling Green, then Scott Satterfield gets fired in that game.
Yeah.
Like he does not even make it back to the locker room. They escort him off the field straight to a car and send him back to down 75. So you've got that. Northwestern State, same case, should be no issue.
Right. So you're thinking, I mean, the expectation is worst case scenario 2-1 coming out of non-conference.
Absolute worst case scenario.
And I will say, the neutral site game is maddening. I mean, TCU's done that before as well, where we lose a home game. We lose a home and home against Ohio State and LSU to get one game at Cowboy Stadium. And it's like, come on, man, why are we doing this? But, I will say one thing that may work out in your favor is just if the sheer act of being in Arrowhead Stadium causes Dylan Raiola to seize out of sheer euphoria. He just can't deal with how excited he is. That could work out. But yeah, I feel like 2-1 is a reasonable expectation for those first 3. So then you got to go to Kansas.
Yep. I think Kansas again they kind of had a come to Jesus moment after their high a little bit. So I think that they're going to be in an interesting situation as well, where they're just looking to, again, rebound off of last year. Similar to us, they're looking to just make improvements, kind of get back to the season that they had before. For us, we're definitely not looking to get back to the season we had before or the season one before that. Our aspirations are really looking to hopefully get more to 7 or 8 and not just bowl games. But Kansas on the road, still going to be tough, but I think realistically that should be a win just to start off Big 12 play. And again, if you're making improvements, which you look year by year, you go 3-9, you go 5-7. If we're adding 2 every year, we should be 7-5 before a bowl game. So I think that's one that you can chalk up, rock chalk. And then Iowa State, UCF, both at home, that little homestand there. Iowa State is going to be interesting, but I I still think they've got our number at the moment. I'd
OSU
like
is going to
to
be good next year.
imagine.
They're going to be good. Not enough people
Yeah.
are talking about them.
Yeah, yeah, they're going to be in a good spot. UCF, however, they're in a restructuring moment, but they've got Scott Frost back. I think that they want to look at how they can recapture some of their magic that they had with him. However, as any Cincinnati fan will tell you, we should be winning that game in this situation, especially at home. That should be a game that you have under your belt and in control. Oklahoma State, I every single year I never know what to expect. I don't think anybody in the Big 12 knows what to expect from Oklahoma State
Yeah.
when it comes to football. I think Gundy basically offloaded his entire staff and then brought in a new one. So we'll see what they have. Of course, last year they were rated pretty highly and just pooped the bed.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they become, but I think it's still a tough game on the road.
That's a tough place to play. Yeah.
It's tough to play, but realistically in that game you should be winning that too. Baylor at home, again, like same situation. It's going to be another 50-50 game, and I think a lot of this comes back to the parity, but I would say like you might win that Baylor one at home, you might drop the Oklahoma State one. So I don't know exactly where that puts us. That puts us as 4-1, 5-1, 5-2. Looking at a very down the barrel, you're looking at the exact same situation as last season. Where do you get that sixth win? At Utah, again, a lot of change there from what they've had. Of course, their season 2, way off base, and I think that
couldn't have happened to a better group of folks. You know,
no, could not have. Talk about a humbling moment. Welcome to the Big 12, buddy. That was tough for them last year. I do think we can manage to win that one. We should be a few steps ahead of them based on where this program is trending and where theirs is right now. Arizona at home, that'd be interesting. I think we should have the better squad there too. But again, I'm looking at this and I just know we're going to drop some of these. I think that one is one that you might get, and then you follow it up with BYU based on last year, based on their physicality, based on what they bring. I really think that BYU is going to continue to roll. I don't think they're going to have quite the year that they had last year. They were very, very good defensively and offensively, just balanced, very balanced approach. But I think the BYU is probably going to steal that one, especially late November. It's just, I don't know. We seem to have sort of lost the 8 ball at that point in the year. And until I'm proven otherwise, I think that they're gonna get the better of us there. And then at TCU, I don't know. What do you think?
You know, well, my initial thought is I just really don't know why we're trying to make fetch happen. You know, I like Conference USA was fun, but like, why do we keep ending the season with TCU Cincinnati as if it's some like event? I don't know. I mean, listen, I think, and you know, our TCU episode is coming. I think the Frogs are going to be a significantly better team next year. It's going to all come down to the offensive line. How that offensive line comes together is going to really dictate the kind of a season that we have. We also have Justin, when I say we have a brutal schedule, our schedule is brutal. It is horrible.
Yeah.
So, you know, I like us in that game. I don't know necessarily that we will have a schedule that's reflective of the quality of our team. I hope I'm wrong. Hopefully we're good enough that we can just go ahead and win a lot of those toss-up games. But just like not only the teams we're playing, but the order in which we're playing them is just really brutal. But I hope that we can finish out strong at the Carter there in that game. I feel like that TCU can win that game.
That's very fair. I think this in my mind would just be a give it to the home team game. And if it was in Cincy, probably give it to them. If it's in Fort Worth, then I'd give it to them. So
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think 6 wins is very doable when I look at this. You know, I tend to like a schedule where the big games are spaced out. You know, Iowa State, UCF, Iowa State, UCF, Oklahoma State, Baylor. That's probably your toughest stretch, just because you have the tough road game in there. 2 high quality, like Iowa State, Baylor. Those are 2 top half of the conference opponents. Both of them could be dark horses for Arlington, and UCF, a little more of a rivalry game. And you know, you never really know what you're getting with them. And then, yeah, you got BYU and TCU at the end. Those are two tough ones. But I think 6 is very doable. I think if you, I don't know. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like if I'm a Cincinnati fan and we're not going to a bowl game after this year, it's kind of like, bro, we got to make a change.
Clint, honestly, man, if we don't start at least, if you don't start like bare minimum 5-3, more so like 6-2. If you don't get those off the board early, there has to be a serious conversation. And I know that the bowl game is gonna be an interesting placement for where you look at Scott Satterfield moving forward. He's still obviously got some time left on his deal, but like you cannot come out of the Iowa State game and not have at least bare minimum 3 wins on the board, but realistically you should be 4-1 coming out of the Iowa State game at worst. And I think if you're just if you lose to Nebraska and if you lose to Kansas and you have nothing burgers against Bowling Green and Northwestern State, I mean, what is this team doing that is any different than seasons prior? And again, like I look at the UCF game, I look at the Oklahoma State game, I look at Utah. It's those a few of those games, like you have to pretty much win those because there's so much turnover and so many changes happening for those teams. I think you realistically need to be the one who's putting yourself in the driver's seat. Last year started 5-1. I mean, look how they finished 5-7. It's until I'm proven wrong that this team can figure it out. Cautious optimism. I'll be excited, but I don't know. I don't know yet.
Well, and I mean, in the words of Natasha Bedingfield, it's still unwritten, right? We don't know what the Scott Satterfield era is going to look like when it's finally finished at Cincinnati, but that was just such a head scratcher for me. Y'all have become such a proving ground for young up and coming coaches. You've had so many exciting young coaches that unfortunately have moved on to other jobs, but you look at like Brian Kelly, Luke Fickell, Mark D'Antonio. I mean, Scott Satterfield didn't make a lot of sense to me. So yeah, it's just kind of like, I don't know. It almost feels like Cincinnati's lost its identity a little bit in that regard. But yeah, hopefully bowl games at least.
A greater conversation in general.
Yeah, sure. So, and I mentioned the O-line for TCU. Is there one big question mark that you have about the Cincinnati team right now going into fall camp, which admittedly is a bit of a ways away? What do you feel like is the biggest question that Cincinnati has to answer for you?
It's a good question. I'd honestly say, like, can you just maintain consistency? I know this sounds so broad, but like back to my point earlier, I think your special teams definitely improved from the year before, the season before that. But I think when you look at each lineup from offense to defense to special teams, each one of those groups needs to just have a baseline. And I think that's the thing is we saw like against the good teams, this program is letting up like 40 points. And against the bad teams, they're keeping things in check, but their offense isn't really keeping up pace, and they're making it a game in ways that it shouldn't be. You're losing to teams like West Virginia, who's firing a coach. You're losing games like that. You're losing a game against Pitt earlier in the season that you should have won when you were up an extreme in all the ways you could possibly think. You were up in that game and you blew it. I think that those kind of things, like, can you just have a baseline consistency that you're not going to let games get away from you? If you have a lead, you can maintain it. And if you're behind, you can find a way to claw back efficiently to where you're at least you have a shot at the end of the game. I think the only one that I felt pretty confident last year that they did everything they possibly could was against like Texas Tech. But then even there, one of the best offenses in the league consistently every single year, defense is letting up 40 plus points. How do you lock those teams down on the road? How do you make a road environment more level? How do you make your home environment something that you're protecting? I think those kind of things have seemed to be lost a little bit, and the value of those home games really needs to be present to make sure that protect your house.
Yeah. Protect the nip, yeah?
Yeah, protect the nip.
It gets cold up there.
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah,
protect the nip. Okay. Just because he's from Ohio, and just because Steve wasn't able to join the show, Caden, you got 3 minutes, okay, to give us your thoughts on Cincinnati. The link is in the chat, so we'll get Caden in here for so he can, and because he gave us the $2 super chat, so thank you very much, Caden, for that. We'll get you in here to talk a little bit of Bearcats. But yeah, looking at the chat, Dishfish is high on you. He sees 7 wins for the Bearcats there. Caden's saying 7 to 8. All right, Caden, what are you thinking, brother? Tell us about your thoughts on the Bearcats. 3 minutes.
Good evening, Clint. First of all, how we doing tonight, good sir? And Justin, good to hear you as always from the Vival Cats podcast. How we doing, sir?
Good. Doing good.
Here's my honest thoughts on Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a good team that's raw, but also has a very wide potential of talent, but also has a good amount of talent on the team. But here's my thing. Use the transfer portal, Cincinnati. Look into recruiting. Especially if you win like the major games, so like if you can pull an upset at home against, say, Iowa State, someone like that caliber, that would really bump up, maybe Cincinnati's recruiting a hair bit. But also, I wanted to say this to you, Justin. Some of my friends who are Cincinnati fans, because obviously I live in Ohio and I got friends that are down from Cincinnati, and I know a couple people that go to Cincinnati. I've been saying possibly about a future coach you're hiring, saying like possibly Lane Kiffin, somebody from him from Ole Miss, and somebody from like Lane Kiffin or somebody on that caliber, maybe to come up to Cincinnati sooner than later. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's any noise to it per se. Obviously, those are all conversations that I think people have in general. Just like, what could we do on the next step? Here's the thing that I would look at going forward. It's, again, with Scott Satterfield, you've seen improvement from the year before. The finish was terrible. And this is, kind of a thing where this program has let some games get away. I would say what you need to do as the program in general is you need to watch very carefully, and you need to see what your measurables are from the seasons prior to this season. And I would say that they need to have a goal in mind. I think they do, obviously, but they're never going to say it, right? They're never going to say what their actual goal is as an athletic department or as a football program, other than just, we want to win a bunch of games. We want to go to Arlington. Of course, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that an athletic director, a program, you have a measured approach where it's either a number of wins, it's something statistically, there's certain achievements where you want to be in the ranking of the Big 12 and the standings. You need to know what that measurement is as a department before you get into the season, and you need to say, if we have not hit this point, this milestone at this point, we need to move on. And I think, Satterfield, like I said, has shown improvement. He can offer you some things that, he's the X's and O's guy, but maybe he isn't necessarily best suited for the NIL era. So if that's the case, how do you manage that? How do you put the right people around him in order for him to succeed? How do you let him manage certain aspects of the game and let other guys take over? And if it's just not working, you got to move on. And that's where I think, again, I don't know. I think to Clint's point earlier, Cincinnati has had a very good track record of hiring coaches who are the prove it coaches who need it. Like, this is my next step up. I need to make something happen here. You go back to Fickle. You go back to Butch Jones.
Yeah, Butch Jones
Tommy
too.
Tuberville one is a splash one, which again kind of makes me, I'm so on it, but not every day you're.
That one was trash. Let's be honest.
That's a offshoot. But
I have tech up here for a reason today.
Yeah, exactly. You look at Brian Kelly, you look at D'Antonio. You got a lot of guys who are in their prove it stage of their career, and are looking to make that next step. We are unfortunately a stepping stone program, but I think we are towards the top of that. You've seen every coach that moves on from here, when they take that next step up, they're going to a huge program. Look at look at Fickle. I mean, even when he moved on to like Wisconsin, that's a lateral move, kind of weird for us in our mindset. But if you look at Brian Kelly, even if you look at Marcus Freeman, you know, you're looking at Notre Dame, you look at where their track record is after that. Of course, you know, Brian Kelly succeeded many a time there, and now Marcus Freeman is in a national championship game. So I think we have a good eye for getting those young guys in there who want it. I don't know if the big splash hire is what you should do, quite honestly. And I think if you're going to do it, the most important factor is you have to get the guy who's not an old head. You have to get somebody who's young, and their number one thing is recruiting. I don't care what anything else is. Their number one thing is, I know how to work the NIL system as a whole. I know how to get guys in here. I know how to recruit locally from Ohio. I know what to do. If you're going to make a big splash hire, it's got to be that type of guy. Because if you get the guys that are in here, some of the older coaches that are starting to leave because this NIL thing really isn't I'm not jiving with it, I think you're just going to keep putting yourself in the same cycle over and over and over again. So,
no, I understand what you mean about that, but also it would bump up recruiting too, but also you could fill out the holes that really need to be full. So on defense, it's the secondary. You could fill out corners and safeties. Make sure that defense is locked down, because the linebackers and the linemen over at Cincinnati are some good guys, but they just need the help to guard, you know, say Iowa State. They got a lot of weapons at Iowa State and BYU. Their offenses are pretty much loaded on their roster. So that's what would really help with recruiting. But here's my thing, Justin, and I'm going to say this, and this is coming from an OSU fan. Remind you that this is from up north here. And I got my Ohio State banner up here.
Oh, man, he snuck it in. Take him off the screen.
But this is coming from an Ohio State fan who's also a big fan of the Big 12. And I said this to Clint a couple of weeks ago, about maybe a month ago, that I have Cincinnati on my list of contenders for the college football playoffs soon college football playoff contenders, because Cincinnati is an underestimated but raw talented team. They just need to fill in the spots that are most important. Keys like wide receiver, running back. Fill in the spots that are most important. Offensive line, secondary, cornerbacks and receivers. Find the guys that really will make a huge impact at Cincinnati. Now, you know, not bragging as an Ohio State fan, but I mean, recruiting wise, you know, we get those once in a lifetime talented guys that come in the program and just absolutely blow the roof off. Cincinnati has the ability to do that. But my thing is, if they can find somebody that's willing to go into Cincinnati, and no disrespect to Scott by any means necessary, just so you know, Justin, if they can find someone with the coaching, like on the coaching staff, and possibly maybe find somebody like Lane Kiffin, Dan Lanning, somebody like that at Caliper, that would really help with recruiting, but also filling out, like I said, filling out the spots on the roster that really need to be filled out. Because really, the Big 12 is a very good conference. And I've said this before plenty of times, Justin, about this conference. Cincinnati, TCU, you know, Baylor, they're good teams, but they're underestimated. They've got the raw good talent on their teams to really make a huge impact. But also, they need to focus on coaching. West Virginia's already done it with Coach Rodriguez, pulling him back now. Scott Frost back at UCF. So they need to find someone that can kick the rhythm up in Cincinnati, but also bring the recruiting in more. Because you need those guys in Cincinnati that need to fill out the holes that you need. Because if you guys got the guys that can fill the holes out, like I said, secondary, offensive line, receiver, running back, quarterback, you know, fill out the holes that, you know, like I said. But as long as you can fill out the holes, you have a good season on your hand. And I mean, and this is coming from an Ohio State fan who just came off a nice national championship victory from Notre Dame, beat 3 other teams, just so everybody knows. An Ohio State fan is in the house.
Mm-hmm. Well, appreciate you jumping on, Caden. Thank you very much for the question there. And yeah, so you know, you heard it, Justin. You just need to go hire Dan Lanning. That's and then replace your whole team.
That is, I do think there's something to be said for, you know, looking at making a big hire and not whiffing. But again, that's sort of the issue that we faced when we hired Scott Satterfield is, who's out on the market right now, who realistically is not a guy who's looking for a second chance, but who's the guy who's looking to, make the next step up. And there was options, but it's not always picture perfect when the window opens and you're moving on from the coach. So hopefully we can get lucky whenever that next cycle comes, and hopefully we don't even have to have that conversation.
Yeah,
hopefully,
hey,
things happen.
Yeah, the seat's warm in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully he's able to turn things around. Much rather see a team win, right, than have to replace their coach. Well, thank you again so much, Justin, for joining the show once again tonight. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. You can find us at Viva La Caps Pod. That is myself, Steve, and sometimes Joel. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen. We are also on YouTube. We do video episodes, so make sure to follow us over there. Keep in tune with our episodes. We have started to slow down. We will have one this week because the Bearcats are, of course, playing in the crown. But it is the slower part of our season as we start to bridge into the offseason, but we will still be out about every 3 to 4 weeks. And then once we get back into the regular season in the fall, for football, August, it is every single week for your heart's desire for about the next 6 to 7 months. So, lots of things covered there for all things Bearcats sports. We try to help out promoting all of the smaller programs too within our athletic department. So it's not just football, not just basketball. Make sure to check it out.
Yeah. And please, all you out there, subscribe at Big 12 BOCFB. Help us grow this show. And you know what? I mean, we don't always have extra time on these team preview episodes, but it doesn't have to just be Caden calling in. You know, if somebody get involved with the show, hey, if you got something you want to say, come on and let me know, and let's get you on here. Let's have you say it. You want to talk to Justin? You want to talk to whoever else I have on here? Come on, let's do it. And follow me at Clint_Foster55 on Twitter and at Clint Foster Creations. I will update that today on YouTube if you're not already. Subscribe to me over there. Connect with the Voice of College Football on Twitter and Instagram. All that information, as well as the sponsorships email, is currently in the chat, so you will find it there. And until next week, which actually, let me confirm here. I want to be able to tell you what next week's show is. Colorado week next week. Okay, we're going to see what Dion has in store for us coming up on April 8th. But until then, I love you. I hope your team wins. And go Big 12. We'll see you around.